Today, we are going to do a deep dive on Pro Operations. We're going to go through all the different stages that Pro Operations is going to affect. What are the most important parts of Pro Operations, and also some of the tools, some of the frameworks that you are going to be able to use in order to establish your Pro Operations process. This is going to be a long video. I'm going to add sections to YouTube so you can actually go to the different sections to navigate faster to the topics that you might find more interesting, because as you can imagine, Pro Operations is a very big area. It's a very wide topic, and it has lots of things that you had to do within Pro Operations. So without further ado, let's start with what is Pro Operations. So Pro Operations is basically setting up the systems, the workflows that are going to help your teams and your company build products at scale, meaning that you want to make sure that you are able to have a reliable process, that when more people come into that process, you are not forgetting parts of the process. So let's say that you don't forget to do discovery, you don't forget to do research, and so on. Pro Operations is going to have 4 pillars, in my opinion. There's going to be 4 areas that are going to really define the key important parts of what Pro Operations is. The first of all is going to be building a scalable process. Why is this important? Is that if you go to most of the companies, what you will see is that they run a product management basically as a custom product management. Everybody does it in a different way. There are good parts to this, by the way, but the problem is that depends on the experience of the people, depends on the experience of the product manager, you might be losing or you might be actually gaining some skills. Some people will be very strong at discovery. Some people will be very strong at execution. Some people will be very strong at documenting processes or documenting what they are doing. Rarely you are going to have somebody that can do everything and does everything properly. Being able to have that Pro Operation system that defines how you're going to work is going to help you. This doesn't mean that it has to be non-flexible, by the way. Just something that you have to pay attention and to keep in mind. You want to define a system, or you want to define a process that still allows innovation and it still allows flexibility from the people that are working with it. The second one that you're going to have is that you are going to create alignment. The second pillar, basically, of the Pro Operations for me. Creating alignment is very important, because what you want to do with Pro Operations, and one of the problems that companies have, especially in B2B tech companies, this is a very real problem, is that companies or teams have usually a strategy. Products usually have a strategy. They want to achieve a goal or a set of goals. I want to enter a new market. I want to enter this, or we need to build this type of big capability into our product in order to open the market to do this, whatever it is. Many times what happens in companies is that people are just so caught into answering needs that they are hearing from sales, support, engineering, executive team, that rarely they have time to pay attention to, is this actually aligning with our strategic goals or not? And even alignment goes further than this. So how do you achieve alignment across teams? Because you can have a product trio very aligned, so your product manager, your product designer, your engineers, they can be very aligned and very strong in what they are doing and having that focus. But if your marketing team is focusing on campaigning to different personas for who the product trio is building for, and sales goals are based on just a blanket number of sales, without really aligning the number of sales to the personas, the industries, whatever it is that your goals are following, then those things are not aligned. And that's a problem. Okay, this goes a little bit beyond the topic of Pro Operations. It goes most into the realm of business operations, but I would argue that as Pro Operations, you should always raise the flag of, hey, this is a problem if not all the teams are doing this. Something that's your management team that you have in mind. The next pillar for pro operations is to create facilitation. You want that you are able to make it easier for people to do their work. You don't want that teams are solving everything by meetings, because you know how it goes. Everything's like, hey, we have a problem meeting. No, you want to set up that process, that set of operations that is going to help teams make decisions, and for them to explain it to others, and for others also to understand why those teams are making those decisions. This is going to be very important and make it much more clear for everybody why we are going into a certain direction and maybe not going into another direction. Because, I mean, this will happen, and this is something that if you have a facilitation, a way of how to do decision making, how to do planning, it's going to make it easier for everybody to understand and be more predictable the way that you are working. And this doesn't mean that you are predictable necessarily in what you are doing, but that people know what to expect and understand why you are making certain decisions. And again, facilitation also is, for me, training, coaching people, helping them learn to be better at their skill. Well, you would argue that, a product manager is going to be really good at product management. And you'd be surprised, maybe in B2C is more the case, but in B2B, it's very often the case that people are industry experts and they grow into a product manager role from within the company. That has been my case. I grew from a software engineer into product management, being in the same industry, not really having been trained for product management. Rarely people have been trained for product management. That's another different story. But what happens then is that you have people that really don't know maybe very well the industry, but they know quite little about product management. Being able to facilitate their knowledge, then growing their skills, that's going to be key for pro operations. The next one is going to be bringing visibility to the outcomes of your work, and also in all the different levels, from how are you performing, your product is performing, how certain, let's say customer journeys are being followed in the product that are going to define if people are really getting value out of the product or not. They can be also on the visibility that you give on how you are advancing on projects. Things like, hey, the project scope is this one. We know that we have to do all these things. This is about where we are. And yes, it's never clear. The scope is usually a little bit vague, but it gives you understanding of how much you have advanced in your work or not. And also including things like how you share your plans with other teams, how you share the information of what you want to build instead of with just one line, but maybe explain a little bit more on what is the problem that you're solving, who are the personas that are affected, what do we think is the potential addressable market for this opportunity, and so on. So bringing that visibility on the work, this is going to be a key part of pro operations, to set up those systems that is going to help enabling the understanding from all the teams of what's going on. Now, we're going to move to the next one. And here we are going to talk first about how to achieve strategic alignment. I talked about alignment earlier, and I think that this is one of the very biggest or most important topics when it comes to pro operations. I'm going to throw every now and then maybe some image here to maybe help you understand a bit what I'm talking about. So for me, one of the most important topics of pro operations is how it's bringing alignment across different teams. I like to talk about ideas as vectors. You have an idea, you start from here, you want to go to this vision here. That's your goal, or your strategic goal, let's call it. Every idea or opportunity, every insight that you get, it can help you move into a certain direction. And it will also move you so far. Depends on the scope of what you would be addressing with that opportunity. Then, with different ideas, what you want to do is that those ideas are moving you closer to your goal. And you want to be able to measure how much an idea is getting you closer to your goal or not. So this is what, for me, strategic alignment is. The problem with many companies, what happens is that you're building something, start here, and then you have something that hey, I want to build this opportunity because it's getting me closer to our goal, our strategic goal. You're never going to go in a straight line. So forget about that. That's okay. But what you don't want to do is that the next idea comes and is like, hey, this is our request for, a one-off. It might apply to other customers or maybe it won't. So you go somewhere here. Then you get a new request for an idea that actually is only going to be benefiting one customer, but nobody else in your customer base. Basically, you are moving away from your goal. Then you might get something else that, hey, again, this is more aligned and maybe it takes you a little bit down here. But basically, you are just a little bit like running around in circles. That's not very beneficial. You are not building business impact. Remember, when you are doing problem management, what you want to do is that you want to find a problem with the different opportunities, see how you can tackle it, see that there is a big enough market out there to justify investing in that problem. And finally, understanding what is the type of the solution that you had to build that really is going to resonate with the users, and they will know how to use it and they will be able to get the benefit out of it. You don't have to think all this on a silo, because it's not a silo, because usually this belongs to a product. You have to see how it fits in the bigger picture. And this is one of the problems, that everything that many times teams build are just one-offs. And when you're building kind of in a one-off way, is that your product becomes very specialized, becomes very difficult to use, becomes something that people are going to struggle with. So if you don't have that higher picture of understanding how this aligns with our goals, different goals, even on user experience, then it's going to probably cause more of a let's call it not easy way, or very quite challenging usability, and what many companies call expert products, which usually for me is more like a excuse not to be user friendly or not to have a great user experience, whatever you want to call it. So when you think about strategic alignment, I think that one of the best tools, in my opinion, to represent this is what usually is called a KPI tree. The expectation with KPI trees is great. I mean, the idea of KPI trees, I really like it. You can also do it with just an Excel. I mean, you don't have to go and draw this. But an Excel would be great also to see it. With an Excel, you can even calculate what is your strategic alignment and so on. But let's think about a KPI tree. Basically, what you want to represent is like a tree of the different strategies that you have, the vision that is driving them. What are the projects that are aligned with the different strategy, and what are the KPIs, the OKRs that you have to make sure that you are achieving the goals of those strategies. So in practice, it sounds really nice. And when you see it in a picture, like an example, it looks great. So you will have a strategy. Under that strategy, there's going to be a couple of projects, the first one, and there's the two projects there. And each project has a KPI that defines the success. Sometimes there's going to be the same KPI for both projects. Sometimes they're going to be different, because it depends on how you define the KPI for your strategy to define the success of achieving that strategy. You have another strategic goal. There you have 2-3 strategic goals that you are trying to tackle at the same time. You'll have maintenance work. KPI trees rarely talks about this. I like to put it there because for most tech companies out there, you're going to spend a big chunk of your time, like a 20, 30, 40% of your time just doing maintenance. Depends on how old your code is. It might be that in principle, it sounds like a 20%, but it might be that, hey, every time that you had to build something, we had to re-architecture the whole thing before we are able to really start building something. So it never looks so perfect and clean and so on. But it gives you a good understanding of the work that you are doing and how this is aligning to the different strategies. This I rarely see any company doing. And this is a problem. So I try always to push this direction, because what you want to do is that you want to make sure that teams are building towards those strategic goals that they have. You can argue if the strategy is correct or not, but if you have a strategy and you are not sticking to it, well, I mean, you might as well not have a strategy. The reality is that many product teams don't have a real strategy, and they cannot tell you what their product strategy is, or they're working on it, which is also well, at least they're working on it, but rarely you can talk with a team and they will tell you, no, these are the 3 things that are key for us to succeed in the next 2 or 3 years. Then the next one. Sometimes, by the way, those are not going to be strategic goals just for product. They might be just strategic goals for the business. So it might include things like, hey, we need to enter, we need to, create more demand generation for our products. It might be that your product is great fit, but it doesn't have demand. So that's a problem. And that's not a problem necessarily of product, it might be a problem for the marketing team to try to solve. But in the end, if those things are not working together, you don't have alignment, your product is not going to be successful. That's why this is all important for product operations. And this is why this is not more important even, because your projects are not just product-specific projects. You don't have to just implement something in the product. You have to be able to message it, you have to be able to sell it, you have to be able to support it. It really has to align all the different teams. Now, if you see the reality of what happens in most of the companies is that you will have a first strategy, as we had earlier, but in reality in the roadmap, there's only one project that supports that strategy. And there's only the KPI, the first KPI that, hey, well, we might be able to move that KPI towards the goal that we want it to be. You will have maintenance work. I bet you that probably you have maintenance work. Sometimes you will have way more than maybe you should. Sometimes you have less. Most likely you have more than you even know that you are having because of that rework, re-architecture that you will be having in the background. Then you are going to have the second strategy. And what happens in most of the companies is that second strategy doesn't even have a project because there's no room in the roadmap to really start going after that strategy. What you will have instead is a bunch of one-offs, different projects that are going to tackle a little bit like what I was telling as example earlier. Hey, this opportunity for this one customer that doesn't benefit any other customer. Basically, we are building something in the product because we want to gain a deal, but not because it's going to benefit the rest of our customer base. Well, this is a problem when you think about it, because basically what you are doing is that you're not building a product, you're building a service at this point. You're just building customization. This can be important, especially if that client is either really big compared to your customer base, or if you are in the very, very, very early stages of a product when you basically don't have any traction and it's like, well, I need the money. So you need revenue, you need to really gain traction, and maybe you go against what you think that you should be doing. So this can happen. But in most of the times that I've seen this is done for customers that are sometimes not even customers. These are potential customers that might be a customer if we do this for them. And then they might buy 1 or 2 licenses, but maybe in the future they will buy more. But it's just all very fuzzy. In most of the cases, this doesn't come to fruition, and those deals never really get to happen. And you will have different projects that are going to be different flavors of this, that are just these one-offs that really are not moving the needle. And some of them you could argue that, hey, this is maybe something that is needed for different customers that we have. But again, it's not aligning with your strategy. So if you have a strategic goal of, we are going to enter this, Southeast Asia market, and in order to do this, we should be doing some things, but then you are doing requests for, South America, well, that strategy that you have, you're basically just ignoring it. And yes, that South American one might be very relevant for that area or that region, but you're ignoring your strategy. And you had to figure out to really understand that if you define strategies, you should stick to them. If you define that this is the way to grow for you and your company and your product, you should stick to it. If you are doing things that still could be benefiting some customers, but then the problem is that because it's a one-off, usually it's not going to be promoted properly, sales is not going to understand it, it's going to fall flat, and it's not going to go anywhere. Unfortunately, I've seen this time and time again. And what's going to happen then is that, well, your second strategy basically has no work. The KPI that you put for the other strategy is not going anywhere. Some of the KPIs that you have for the first strategy are not moving anywhere. look, what happens in most of the cases is that you start the year, you had this kind of a roadmap. This is like what you're going to do in the first half of the year. Great. You do that. You have one project that you have moved for one strategy. Then you start the second half of the year. You get the new bunch of requests because you will have the new bunch of one-offs. And then you're thinking that, well, should I finish the work for the first strategy? Should I move to the second strategy? Well, no matter what you do, if you are doing like this half a year quarterly planning, this is setting you back a long time. And most of the companies are still doing this, even if they are releasing continuously. They are doing still quarterly plans or half a year plans. And what's going to happen then is that, hey, I just will go for this strategy now in the second half of the year. We start building for the second strategy, but we wanted to tackle this strategy this year. But if you think about it, your development period, how your promotion is going to go, how your sales cycle is going to go, this gets pushed back to the end of the year, meaning whatever you do is not affecting this year anymore. So whatever you think that your plan says that your other teams thought that you were going to do, you're basically not going to do, and you're not going to deliver. And this is going to create frustration and, again, lack of alignment and all these things. This is why it's very important. And when you look at this, so for the first image, you could say that, hey, we have 4 projects, 3 projects are aligned with our strategy. We are about 75, if we estimate it very roughly. 75% of our work is strategic. If you go to this one, you have 5 projects. 1 of them is aligned with the strategy. Then you're talking about you are aligned 20% of your work is strategic. And the rest, 20% is maintenance, and basically 60% of your work is not strategic. What happens here is like, well, you could consider that from an investment point of view, only 20% of the money that you're investing basically is going in the direction that you think that is going to grow your company. While, okay, 20% you are also can justify that 20% of maintenance because you had to keep the lights on in the product, but then you have all these one-offs. And that's a 60% of money that you're investing in something that probably is going to have very little return for the company. Well, if you would be concentrating on your strategic goals, that would definitely bring the impact that you want and really bring that alignment to the company and build the business impact, because that's in the end what your CRO is going to look after, your CFO, your CEO. If you are able to justify this, if you are able to use this type of tool, not just to analyze what you're doing now, but every time that you are doing a new planning, that would be great for you. Before we move to the next topic, I want to let you know that I have a course where I teach how to do pro operations extensively, talking about the different frameworks that you can build or that you can use when you are building those pro operations in your teams. So please take a look at the description. There's going to be a link to that course down there. Another very important part where you had to set up a pro operations process that this one I almost never seen working properly is how you manage insights, how you manage all the market intelligence that you are getting all the time, the feedback on your product, and how you really have it on a structured way. In most of the cases, what's going to happen is that companies just, or product managers, every time that they had to figure out what is going to be in the next roadmap, what they're going to be, is a little bit panicky and start looking through where are all my requests. They can be in emails, they can be in Slack channels, they can be in Excel sheets that somebody share, PowerPoint that maybe a sales team has shared from what they have gathered from different customers, whatever you have gotten from support. You have your bugs that are maybe in Jira, however you call it. You're going to have a ton of requests across many different platforms. And basically what you don't have is a backlog to manage those insights. This is something that I've seen many companies, rarely seen basically in any company having done properly. Some of them, they have a backlog for insights and they just have a handful and then the rest is still in the emails. So I've seen that unfortunately too many times. But basically what you want to build is that you want to build or help your team build a backlog of those insights. I would not treat those ones then as the features or whatever you are building, but I would attach those ones to opportunities, because what happens many times is insights are like bugs. Sorry for saying this, but basically they have been repeated over time, and then there's different variations of the same insight coming from different sources. Ideally, you want people to put those ones directly into that backlog, and then from there you are able to, hey, map it out and map it to a potential opportunity. Basically, what you want to do is an opportunity that's linked to several insights that are related to each other. So you don't just treat things as a feature, but as an opportunity, that this opportunity then is going to be having different things to be answered. It's like, what problem are we solving here? You want to create some kind of template here. You want to say this like, hey, what is the problem that we have identified here? You want to look into who are the personas that we are tackling with this problem, which geographic areas, which industries, especially if you are in B2B, we are tackling with this one. Many times what I put those ones are like checkpoints or checkboxes that you can see which ones are the ones that are being checked. You also want to understand the potential TAM of this opportunity. What is the potential market need for this opportunity out there? At least to a certain degree, because this is going to help you identify impact. This is going to help you identify and understand how much or what is going to be the size of this opportunity, and what many teams are looking after when they are talking about impact of an opportunity. And finally, you also want to see if this opportunity is aligning or not with some of the strategic goals that we have at this point. If it's aligned with a strategic goal that we have at this point, it's great. We might consider even to add it to the roadmap. If it's not, it's still great. You might consider it in the future when something that is relevant, or if there's a strategic goal or a strategic intent that this opportunity could be aligned to, then you can move it forward. When it comes to insights come from many different sources. And this is why sometimes product managers are more seen as a curator of ideas. And this is what the process that you have to have is like how you are able to funnel all these requests into some kind of backlog that you can manage. So insights can come from your customers, your users, from technology, new technology. Hey, AI, we can all put AI. Or at some point, everybody could go to blockchain or create a SaaS version of their product. We've seen many of these over the years. Then they can come also from management. Management can have talk about what are the strategic goals, that they want to enter a new market. Those are very important insights, obviously, because they are usually very strategic and usually aligned across the company. It can come from sales. Sometimes it can be a sales cases, and sometimes it can be sales people talking with existing customers and getting feedback from them. So it's a little bit similar to the customer request. Support usually is going to be focused more on bugs and problematic areas on the product than necessarily areas where they could see something new. But there's going to be those ones as well. Solution engineers tend to be a little bit similar to the cases that sales brings, but again, focus more on existing customers. And the product team, of course, can have their own ideas that they can come from meeting with customers. Ideally, you are a product manager that meets customers, because I don't know how many product managers are out there actually don't meet customers often. This is it's quite unbelievable that this still happens nowadays. New trends, workshops that you might have internally, you might have discovery workshops, ideation workshops. These are great moments to really, try to do brainstorming. And experiences that you have in other industries, those are very transferable. Those are very important, I think, for really finding those potential insights. Now, once you have this, people are going to be confused. Do you go to prioritization or do you go to discovery first? So I would say that for me, both topics, prioritization and discovery, kind of go hand in hand. And I cannot say that one goes necessarily before the other. So it's not like you're saying that you should do discovery before prioritization, and I don't even say that you should do discovery after prioritization. Actually, I would say that it depends on the situation. You will do it before or after, because in some cases you still have to identify when you do discovery. Let's go through quickly what is discovery. So discovery, you want to do different things. You want to make sure first that you are understanding the whole opportunity. That's the main goal of discovery. And discovery is going to have different aspects. By the way, you don't need to do always discovery, because in some cases it's very obvious if you know the industry very well. But if you are going to do discovery, I would say that there's going to be three main areas why or reasons to do discovery. The first one is to validate the problem. Is this a real and relevant problem for your customers or for your prospects, potential customers out there? How you can do this? You can do user interviews, you can do surveys, you can do or potentially even lightweight MVPs to even test if a problem exists. You can see this sometimes by what some people do is that they put this, I guess it's called fake door MVP. You just put a front, the storefront, maybe something online where you can buy, but then when you buy, you actually don't buy, and it's like, hey, give me your information, I'll contact you once this is built. We are building this solution. You want to test basically if there's interest out there for this problem. That's what sometimes in those cases, those light MVPs can do. The next one that you want to do when you do discoveries is that you want to validate the business opportunity. Is this worth pursuing? People will use different names here, like feasibility and so on, and viability for these different stages. But basically, those are the three areas that you want to answer here. So with this one, with validating the business, there's going to be market research. That's going to be probably one of the most important ones. Understand what are the trends, what the competitors are doing, what is the demand, or what is the competition. You want to also do use techniques like TAN, SAM, very good one for me for understanding the size of the market and the potential size of the market. What could be realistic for you to capture once you understand the competition? That would be the SAM. And what would be the market that you actually can capture because of your operations? And this is something that people don't usually look at or look into. No matter where you put your product, even if you put it online, it's like, hey, I have a global audience because I sold one license in, a country. Is that, well, that's not a global audience. Usually you're going to have restrictions on how you're building the product. It might be restricted because of the languages that you support, the currencies that you support, the local regulations, the local compliance, whatnot. It might be because you don't even have a sales team in those areas or a support team in those areas to really actually drive the business forward. So those are things that are going to be important. How you can validate the business? Also, you can do things like validate business design, and you can also do some kind of experimentation to validate the demand. So with the previous one, I was talking about validating the problem. Here you could start to validate that, hey, what prices can they actually be willing to pay? Understanding these things is going to help you validate your business. The third aspect of discovery is validating your solution. Basically here is what you want to answer is that, do we solve the problem effectively? So do we have understanding of the technology that we had to build? Do we have the people that know how to build this? Because imagine that you have been doing a desktop product and like a desktop app, like a Windows app or a Mac app. Great, you have been very successful, selling a lot, and then suddenly you want to start putting AI into that one. It's like, well, do you have people in the company that really know how to do that? Or if you want to create a SaaS version or some kind of SaaS product, do you have people that know how to do the whole DevOps side? Infrastructure work that you need to have for SaaS products or not. Many companies, they just jump in, it's like, hey, let's do this. Like, yeah, we don't have the people that know how to do this, so how are we going to do it? So that's something that you have to also take into account. So it's technology, then there's the user experience, the design that you're building. Are you building the solution that people really are resonating with, that they understand how it works? Does this break your product? Does it make it more difficult to use? And how you can do this is, well, you can build mockups, you can build prototypes, you can also build different types of MVPs, because again, there's a ton of types of MVPs. Minimal viable product, if you don't know what it stands for. And something that you can do as well, and I think that it helps a lot when you are especially building a very big new part of the product, or you're building a brand new product as a service design, understanding what are the flows, the journeys that people are going to go through in the product, and even outside the product. Even you could consider things like marketing and so on. Maybe that goes more in the realm of business design, you could argue, which is also true. But still, I think it's very, very, very useful to do it, because then you have a high level understanding of, okay, this, now I understand, I have a mental picture of how this whole thing is going to work together. So discovery, very important. And as I said, because discovery has so many aspects, at some point I might just be validating the problem. But once I understand that, hey, this problem is interesting and is aligned with our strategy, we might already prioritize it. We still had to understand the business, or maybe we have understood the business size. We know that the potential is great, but technically we had no idea how we were going to build this. So, So that's why then you need to validate the solution. So, as I said, you don't always have to do discovery. I would say that when you have to do discovery, usually when you are not familiar with the problem, when it's a new opportunity where you don't have a lot of knowledge. So for example, the AI thing or the SaaS thing, you will want to spend more time. If you want to build a new product, I would definitely say that you have to do that, to do the discovery. When you don't need to do discovery, many cases you will know the problem really well. If you have a B2B product, it's very likely that you have very good industry experts, and sometimes they will know very well the problem. They might not know very well the solution. So it might be that there's parts of the validation that you need to do, or the discovery. So it might be that you don't need to validate the problem. You might not need to validate the business because you understand it really well, but you need to validate the solution. And sometimes it's going to be the other way around. You know very well how to build a solution, but you have no idea about the business size. So there's going to be, in different cases, you might want to do just only some parts of the discovery. And in some cases, what you want to do is just a lightweight discovery, and that might be enough, especially in the cases where you are more familiar, but maybe the context has changed a bit, where the business impact is not so certain, and maybe you know in a way the solution, but you want to still validate that the users are going to know. So you know the technology, but for example, you want to validate more maybe the user experience. You could argue that many teams do this in beta testing. Beta testing is a bit late, because when you do beta testing, you're not doing discovery, you're just kind of throwing it 1 or 2 weeks before you're going to do the launch, and you rarely have time to really iterate and adapt based on the needs. Basically, if you are doing it discovery properly, you should be doing it over time with the customers. How often you had to do this? I would recommend that if you are going to do let's talk about a design from your UI, like a product design, I would work from the beginning of the planning already with customers. Hey, work with mockups. This is what we think is going to be. What do you feel? Do you understand what we are trying to achieve? Bring prototypes. Nowadays with AI, it's relatively easy even to build something like that. Or Figma. Figma is awesome, the things that they can do. You don't even have to go to AI. You can just create these interactive UIs that they can go clicking. And if they are able to understand this new design on their own, then you probably are on the right path. If they are lost and they don't know where to even start clicking because they don't even understand what this is trying to do, well, then you have a problem. Then you can iterate, you can work with them and work in defining that design. This is why you should have product designers. This is why your product designers, your product manager should work with the customers and have that contact. If you don't have that talk with your superior talk with your head of product, they have to talk then with sales, they have to talk with the other teams, so this is understood and everybody it's okay with that. Now let's talk into prioritization. Prioritization is probably the topic that is related with product operations that people love the most. How do you find the opportunities that are most valuable for you? And this is why I was saying earlier that for me, discovery and prioritization sometimes go very hand in hand, and sometimes you do discovery before you do prioritization, sometimes you do prioritization and you continue doing discovery. Like, well, we know that this is a great opportunity, we still don't know the solution. So maybe the borderline there is that once you understand the business, you maybe want to do the prioritization or the prioritization, and then after that is when it's already starting to be in the roadmap in a way as a feature that is going to be built, although you're still researching what is the solution. Again, what you want to do when you prioritize is that you want to find out what are the opportunities that first of all are aligned with your strategic goals, are important for you to really move forward those strategies, or they're critical for the maintenance of your work, of your product, there are many different techniques. Some people will have very different ways of scoring opportunities, very complex ways of scoring opportunities. To be frank, I don't tend to believe a lot on them. I believe a lot on the frameworks. I like some of the frameworks a lot, but I never want to use them as them giving me the truth of what I'm going to do. So for example, I use several of these ones in the past. I've used things like value versus effort, or like a matrix, RISE, reach, impact, confidence, and effort. That gives you a score, that magical number that is going to tell you what you should do or not. I use things like Moscow. Moscow, I love it. I think people hate Moscow. I think it's great. It's like Moscow is like the best framework to start phasing your product in the way of what is my phase one, what could be my phase two, what could be, or if we take the approach of Moscow, what must be my phase one, what should be my phase two, what could be my phase three, and so on. And yes, the scope might change, and this is something that you have to iterate, but basically it gives you an idea of what I want to be the core in the beginning. I can validate, iterate with customers based on the feedback. I adapt that second phase and so on. So my product and my vision evolves over time, of the vision of how I'm building, not the vision of the product necessarily. And jobs to be done. Great one for discovery, a great framework for really understanding the problems, really understanding what could be the solution and the needs that the users have. So very, very good in that aspect. What I have done usually in different companies as a product leader is that I sit down with my product managers and we come up with maybe a couple of scenarios. And I like always to put it in the matrix, like value versus effort. Why? Because I don't want this to be what I'm going to do. I like to take this to the leadership team as okay, let's talk. These are the different opportunities that we see. We know that these opportunities are aligned with this strategic goal. These other opportunities are aligned with another strategic goal. And we have a capacity, how much effort we can build. Yes, you can build that into the matrix, but then you can start putting a couple of scenarios that we could decide to go for these features or these opportunities and build the roadmap based on them. We have these other ones that are these big potential opportunities that are going to take us longer time, but maybe we want to start working on them now, because if we don't, we are only working in those smaller opportunities there's rarely those opportunities that have a huge impact and very little effort. That rarely exists. So that's not usually the case. And usually the bigger the opportunity, usually the more the effort is going to take you to get there. Anyways, what I want to do with this is have a discussion then with the rest of the leadership team so everybody aligns on what we are building. And I want to have 2 or 3 scenarios and discuss this, because then I want to make sure that I'm aligning with sales teams, that I'm aligning with marketing, that I'm aligning with R&D, and so on. And yes, I have had the hat of marketing and product management at the same time in some companies. And this is something that, of course, for me has been very easy then to align those two. But when you have different people, then you have to make sure that you're aligned, that everybody, look, you don't have to agree always with is decided. You might disagree, but you have to align and make sure that, hey, I don't think that this is the best option, but we agree to do it. Let's go for it. Everybody goes, hand in hand towards that goal and try to make it work. I think that that's the best way to work. And I don't like too much that R&D or product comes with this, hey, we do this. I like to always run it through my leadership team to make sure that I agree with everybody. I usually have worked with the different people in the leadership beforehand. So I don't go there with a surprise, this is what you're going to do. No, it's like I already talked with R&D. They know very well what we have planned. They have given their input. I already have talked with the sales teams. In my case, also even with the marketing team. So I already have that alignment brought in, but I just want to sit down everybody to sign off. And ideally, I want to have my PMs there, and that the PMs are showing and talking about the different opportunities, the ones that are related to whatever part of the products that they are managing. If you have a product portfolio, of course, this gets more and more complex, different story, but this helps you to have that chat, that discussion on what you're going to do, and basically the leadership team signing off on that roadmap, which puts you in a very good position for when you are doing road mapping in the next month. So why is this important for product operations? Yes, we are talking about product management to a certain degree, but for product operations point of view is that you are setting up the system for the team to really be able to have a way of having a process on how they are prioritizing and remembering what they had to do in order for them to be able to do the prioritization. As a product operations manager or as a product leader that is driving product operations, what you want to help is your team to really start doing the work so you are prepared for when you had to do the presentation. You are there to facilitate the work. So remember that all these things that I'm talking about, it's not just product management, it's setting the operations, the ways of working for the teams to really be able to succeed and make decisions together and bring that alignment that I was talking earlier on. Now, when it comes to roadmaps, if you're a product manager, this is probably something that you're, I know how to do a roadmap. Well, you probably know how to do a roadmap. You know probably how to put features into a backlog. I've seen many times that many companies, many teams, they put a feature in the backlog. Then I go and take a look at the feature. What happens then is that there's one line telling me about the feature. Then R&D takes that feature and interprets it as they can best interpret it. And in some cases, product managers and R&D will work relatively close together and they will advance on their understanding. Then they pass this to marketing. And marketing is again a bit lost of what is this all about and why should we do this? And then sales is like, well, I don't know how we are going to sell this because I don't know what this means. So when doing roadmaps, I would recommend that people, again, set up the operations, the ways of working, of putting templates in place. Understanding that, hey, when you're building a feature, when you're addressing an opportunity, there are things that we have to understand. Things like, what is the problem that we are trying to tackle here? What is the solution that we are building? What is the value proposition? What is the value that we are giving to our customers? Who are the personas, the industries that are going to be affected? What are the use cases that we have for this? And what could be technical considerations? What are you doing with this? Well, you're creating alignment. You're creating alignment with R&D, having already some of the technical considerations that they had to put from their point of view. So when they start the work, they understand, they have context. You are adding documentation. You're helping that the teams are documenting the work that they're building. You're ready from the beginning, and ideally you're working already, even in the beginning when you're applying these things with marketing, you're applying with sales, that they understand better that, hey, these are the personas that we are going to tackle, these are the industries that we are going to tackle. We can already start, or they can already even start applying their work, how we are going to do a campaign to talk about this, who are the customers that we should be talking about it, because this is relevant for them. What is the value that they are going to get? How are going to be the use cases on how they are going to use this in the product, how this is going to benefit them. So you are trying to not just put in a one-liner that, hey, we are entering these markets. No, you are talking all the things that really you are going to help them align and really build that solution or build that opportunity in a way that is creating alignment from the beginning towards those users. Now, I'm not going to talk a lot more about how to build roadmaps because you probably are already quite familiar how to estimate capacity. I'm going to talk about one thing. And there's many times since Kanban came, everybody wants to do everything in Kanban. The reality is that, well, they can have many different versions in most of the tools nowadays. So you don't have to be restricted about having your Kanban that you might be very comfortable with working with it, but it's not beneficial for other teams. Like other teams will need to have a visual of a potential timeline of how this is going to be rolled out, to understand when they had to start working on the campaigns, they had to have all the materials. When we do a pre-launch campaign, when we are ready to do a pre-launch campaign, when we are ready to do a post-launch campaign, whatnot. This is very important for teams like marketing, sales, to really understand when they're going to have all the work ready. I would also recommend that ideally you want to have some kind of visibility, especially from a product operations point of view, of how much are you completing the work towards your goal, the scope of that opportunity, because the opportunity is not just about product that you might have in place. Again, I haven't seen it very well done in the past in other companies. They are just, every time that I ask where we are at, somebody has to go through OpenJira and try to figure out because they don't know how to set up a burnout chart. Things like that, but that's just one part. You also want to understand, where is marketing? How far marketing has been working on this? How far is sales prepared? Do we have the sales deck updated? Do we have the, sales video? If we need to create, where are we with that? All the different resources that you had to create for going out to the public. And yes, in some cases, you just push a button, things go out, they get released, and then the campaign is done later. You still have to make sure that you have some kind of management system in place. You might not be responsible for everything, and that's fine. You have to bring the visibility, at least the areas that you are responsible for. And if you are able to have like one source of truth for the status of all the different aspects of the project, well, that's even much better. Now, you also can have different versions of the plan. It can be something like a release roadmap. That's also very common one to have, it's basically a little bit like a Kanban, but basically instead of having the to-do in progress, then what you have are the release versions and what is the scope of the work in each one of them. So there are different visualizations that you can create. And these visualizations serve different needs. So I would not just focus on one of them. You can have easily very different visualizations, and depends on who's using it or for what purpose you're using it, you can use one or the other. Why a version 1 is important is that because if I am in sales teams, they want to see what is coming in the next version of the product. You don't have to show everything. You don't want to show, for example, what is in discovery in there, because this is discovery. It might be added or it might not be added to the product when we release it. So you don't want to have everything available or visible there. But this is something that they can talk then with customers. You can talk with a customer. When you go and talk with a customer, you can pull up this let's call it public roadmap, that it includes the things that you know that you're working and that you know that are coming out. And you can have that conversation to get feedback, to see that, customers like to see what is coming. You would like to see sometimes what is coming in new products that you are excited about or that are important for you. So this is something that you can use as a tool. It's a very good way of having a conversation also with them. And then finally, I would say that something that I haven't seen in many companies, I've touched upon it a little bit, is to have a commercial roadmap. You want to have a commercial roadmap. Ideally, you have it in the same tool. It makes things much easier to manage. Sometimes, or in most of the cases, you won't have it. But you want to see and understand better what are going to be the commercial activities or roadmaps that you are going to have. So things like, what are you doing for sales enablement? Do you have sales decks? Do you have value propositions? What marketing is working on? What type of campaigns are they working? Because marketing is not working there just to talk about the latest release. They're also talking about or working in different campaigns that they have. Like, hey, they're promoting now to a specific industry or promoting now to a specific region. And for that, they had to have different activities, social media, they had to have webinars, videos, whatnot, whatever it is that they need to create. Then you also have the customer success part. How are you going to train them in the latest features that you are building? Are you updating how-tos, FAQs, whatnot? All these things had to be in the plan. This is part of a commercial roadmap. It is very important that this is something that ideally it's into, again, one place in one tool. It can be in different tools. It might be a little bit more difficult to manage, but hey, again, but as a pro operations, you want to have that visibility. At the same time that you're bringing visibility from your side, you should be also demanding visibility from the other side. And commercial roadmaps, I would say, that are very important. I would also have a discovery roadmap. Again, your discovery roadmap definitely can be in the same tool that you're using, because usually you're going to be doing discovery for either the problem, the market, the business opportunities, and the solution. These are things that usually are going to be taken care by product or R&D or design. Usually they are going to be using the same tool. I would have those as a discovery roadmap as well. Again, you use tags, you use views to have sometimes see the whole roadmap, or just to see the features roadmap, the release roadmap, or you want to see the now or the now, then, later, whatever is the different versions of roadmap that you're using. But then you understand what are the things that you have in discovery, what are the ones that you have in implementation, what are the ones that are in commercial, and so on. And just different people will want to have different visibility on those different roadmaps. So one of the things that is very interesting here and very important in my opinion, and as I was saying, I wanted to show this figure because I think it's very a little bit telling of the reality of what happens with teams, is that teams usually work in what is coming in the release. So product team will focus very much on the features that they are building. Then discovery might or might not be documented, but then the commercial activities are not then linked to them. So teams tend to work very much in horizontal. Like, this is my team, this is my priority, but this is my area of responsibility. But that's a problem view, because in the end, what you want to do is that people align vertically, because this verticality here is what actually brings the success of the product. So having all the different teams that are working on the different aspects of the product, from building the product to selling the product to supporting the product to promoting the product, those are the people that had to align. And it's not the people that are building just the artifact that is the product. Sorry to put it that way for product people. Product are just artifacts for many people. For sales, for example, success comes from all those different teams being aligned. Those teams are really the product teams, not the trio, not the product manager, the designer, and the engineers. That's not the the product team, in my opinion. The product team should be a cross-functional team. Everybody that is responsible for the success of that product. That's how you want to bring alignment. You want to bring alignment vertically, not horizontally. If you focus too much on the horizontal part, you are just building silos, basically. And that prevents communication, prevents alignment, and causes many of the problems that companies have, brings or lacks the visibility of the work that you're doing. Now, I want to move to the next one because this is already pretty long. I seem to have been already talking about an hour here. The next one is going to be talking about how to build the feedback loops, the visibility. One last thing I want to touch upon. When you are building releases, whether you are doing, hopefully you are aligning to your strategic goals. What you want to do, ideally, is that you want to have theme for your releases, especially when you talk about them. Because then you are talking, if you have a theme, and the theme is that, hey, this is aligning to this strategic goal, and what we are doing here is that we are talking to a certain type of personas, to a certain industry, and everything that we are doing is focused on them. It makes it much easier to promote. It makes it much easier to sell. It makes it much easier to communicate. If the bugs that you are fixing, especially if they're not critical, they're very related to those areas. Again, it makes it very tangible for the people that are affected, for them. It makes it very easy to talk about that release. Most of the releases that you will see, you will hear talking about all the different areas of the product that are completely unrelated. And in the end, it's very difficult to market from the point of view of marketing and to tell what's happening because there's not a connecting tissue between those different features, different opportunities that you have been tackling. Again, let's move on so we don't take too long with this whole thing. So finally, there's going to be delivery. During delivery, I'm not going to go too much into the delivery. It's, I think, a part that, again, is very important. What I would say is that for delivery, it's very important that you have achieved alignment way before the delivery happens. You don't want to build in the last 2 weeks or in the last month. You want to build alignment from the moment that you are planning. You want to have things like go, no go, where you have and make decisions of, hey, are we ready to go out? And this doesn't mean, again, I'm not saying that you should release things once every month or every 6 months. Many of you will, but that's a different story. Or that you release every day 20 times. I don't care. But you had to make sure that when you go out to the market and you tell your story, you had to align and you had to have this kind of go, no go. It's like, hey, we had now all the things that we wanted to talk about. We had the features that we wanted to build. We have all the campaign materials. We have all the sales teams prepared. This is why it's important to have this as a roadmap and to see the progress. Because if you know that everything is ready, well, the go and no go is just like, yes, ready, found it here, all the resources, everything's ready. We are good to go. We'll go out in tomorrow, today, in 1 or 2 weeks, doesn't matter. But then it gives you that process. Understanding also how you are going to do typically launches. Are you doing A/B testing? Do you do alpha testings, beta testings, whatnot? That's also very good part of the process to define. I'm not going to go into the beta testings as useless because you're only going to find bugs there. Yeah, maybe. They also create engagement with users. So it depends on how you manage them. And you might get also some good feedback. But what you want to have is delivery process written down. And you want to have this something that it's understood by the people, the stakeholders, the team members. They understand how you are going to work. I just want to remind you that before moving to the next one, that I have a program for building your pro operations in your company. If you're interested in knowing what it's all about and how it can help you really deep dive into all these different aspects of pro operations and really get a solution that is going to be then, you can then tailor it to your own needs, please go and check the link in the description. Now, let's go to the next one. I talk about visibility. This is one of the most important ones, I think, something that I see many teams lacking. I think that certain companies, probably companies, have nailed this, or they are very advanced in this. Other companies that are not so product led are usually not very good at it. Let's put it that way. What you want to build here are different things. You want to have something like a company dashboard, like a business dashboard, not say company dashboard, because if your company has 20 businesses, you're going to go crazy. You want to have some kind of business dashboard. What is a business dashboard? On a business dashboard, you are going to look into different aspects. Usually, you are going to try to follow a little bit like what's the customer journey. You want to measure what is the awareness that you are creating, how successfully your marketing efforts, your promotion efforts are working. How are you creating demand of your product? Demand generation, very important. That's usually the people that really then sales can work with them, where they can then follow up the opportunities. How many opportunities do we have? How many leads do we have in the pipeline? What is the status of our pipeline? That's something very important. Then you want to see the conversions to sales. How many sales have we been selling? You want then to see things like support cases, for example. What is the status of our pipeline in support? What is the healthiness of the product? You want to see things like potentially even loyalty. Usually, to be frank, when you had the business once, everything stops after sales. After sale, everybody's out. That's just the reality. But you want to also see follow-up things on loyalty, how much people are really helping you engage and really promote and grow your product, grow the audience that you have. It's the whole customer journey that you had to build, from awareness all the way to loyalty. Then what you want to do also, you want to make sure that you have a product dashboard. Product dashboards are going to be different things. There's going to be a quality dashboard, very, very important. And you want to make sure that you have this. You want to have like a traffic lights dashboard that is going to help you understand that, hey, are we passing all the tests, all the automated tests, even manual tests? Are we passing all the coding tests, like static code analysis, stuff like that? Very technical. But you want to make sure that you are building things that are aligning with the architecture of your product, that you are not breaking the architecture totally. This is especially important in industries that are very regulated, like automotive, medical. They have very clear regulations of how to build the code. You want to make sure that you have like a traffic light system that helps you understand that is run maybe nightly, maybe weekly. Depends a lot on the type of test that you are building, and it depends on the areas of the product, the code that you're looking. You might want to have them once a day, every time that you build it, once a week, whatnot. But anyways, you want to have this so you understand in which situation your product is. I've been in companies that there was always these cases that were always red, and it was like, why do we have red things? Like, well, they have been red forever, so we're not going to fix them. It's like, well, if there's a test that is in a dashboard, if it's red, we have to fix it. If it's red, but we don't care, maybe it's not that important, maybe it should not be there. So you had to really build those things. Again, very important part of product operations. You had to work with R&D. Many of these ones are very heavily on the R&D side. Some of them, if it comes to the usability, is more in the QA teams. So you had to work with those teams to make sure that that's available, that's visible, because this is a very important part of how you're building the product while you're building it. If you don't care about the quality of the product until your release, you're going to have a horrible time to fix everything. You want to keep the quality of the product all the time in line with what you're building. Because if you're just breaking things left and right, and then 1 week before the release, you decide that you're going to fix everything, well, good luck with that one. You also want to have dashboards on the usage of the product, on the adoption of the product, the adoption of new features. And okay, not new features only. Customers rarely use a one feature. Customers usually do a journey within the product, and you want to make sure that those journeys that they usually take, they're safe, they don't break, they work, they still get the value that they want. So for example, a company that I was working with, it was looking at the quality of construction. And for this, it was checking like the architectural models, the engineering models, and you had to compare those models and make sure that the output was consistent and always the same. So you want to make sure that you build that with some test models that you use, and make sure that the value of the product always stays as it is and you're not breaking it. So that's part of that quality anyways. But you also want to make sure that you understand that you have different journeys to get to different value propositions. Which ones are used? Which ones are not used? What can you do for them to start using them? So it's not just about quality, it's about design and about the usability and the experience that your customers have with your product. You also want to build visibility on all the things that you are building or that you are defining. So when I was talking earlier about a new feature and how to define that feature, this is because you want to bring that visibility as well on what is the scope of the work. So everybody from the beginning understands what you're doing. And this is why you have something like a PRD, call it whatever, feature definition. I don't mind what you call it. But basically some kind of document. It can be light. It doesn't have to be the Bible. It doesn't have to be super heavy. But something that people can take a look and understand that, hey, this is what we are going to do. This is who it's for. This is the value that they're going to get. These are the areas that are affected. And these are the use cases and potentially some technical considerations, whatnot. That is going to help bring in that visibility. That is going to help teams understand what's happening. So I don't think that visibility is only about data. It is very heavy on the data, but it's very also important that you have an understanding of how, what they are seeing on the plans. Okay, we are coming closer to the end. There's a couple of topics more that I want to talk about. One is going to be related to the tools, and the other one is going to be very important. It's going to be documentation. Very exciting. People hate this one, but this is a very important topic. So first of all, let's talk about the tools. What are the tools that you are usually going to use? Well, there's going to be different tools. If you're very lightweight, you're going to have something like Trello. If you are a tech company, most likely you're going to use something like Jira or Atlassian tools. If you are very startup-y, you might use something like Coda, Notion. If you are a more established tech company, you probably are going to use some of the dedicated product tools like AHA or ProBoard or ProPlan, AirFocus. I'm trying to remember all of them. Pendo. You're going to have a stack of tools. So you want to document why you're using these tools and what's the purpose of each one of these tools. So, hey, we have Jira for tracking the tasks that we are working and the epics that we are working in R&D. We have product board or AirFocus or whatever it is to do the product management planning. And we have those links. The links, unfortunately, are not very great, and that's why I usually like when people work in more in one tool, because you can see the progress much better. When with the links that many of the tools have, at least last time I was working with them, not very great. You don't get good updates on that. Then you are going to use Figma, for example, for product design. Figma has usually quite good integrations with the different tools. We're going to use Confluence for documentation, or we're going to use Notion for the documentation part, whatnot. And then go-to-market teams. Marketing is probably going to use Asana, it's going to use Monday.com. Sales, I would say most of the companies sales is going to use Salesforce. And other than that, they're not going to use anything else. Rarely, they're going to use something else. And then, different teams are going to have different tools. So you want to document which tools you are using and understand how you are linking them together. And this is very important. When you are purchasing a tool, you have to understand how it fits in your ecosystem. And this is like, you have to think this also for the products that you're building. If your tool or the product that you're building doesn't work well in an ecosystem of tools, well, you will have a problem. So this is very important to really understand, test the tools, see how they integrate. Do they really work properly with the other tools that we are using? Should we buy everything from one vendor like Atlassian is trying to do, that they're trying to go for everybody that it's in any tech company? Maybe. Or should you have the best of breed, have the best one in each one of the different realms? Well, you can take both approaches. It will depend on you. So up to you. What I would not recommend is have duplicates of roadmaps in different tools. I've seen sometimes that you had to have placeholders. It's a bit annoying. I was working once with a company that it was using a certain tool for tracking the things in R&D. There was epics there with the tasks, and then they were having another product management dedicated tool. And then basically they mirrored the epic here, and it was linked into the other epic. Is this great? Well, no, it's not great, but it's a way to kind of overcome the maybe the limitations of the integration centers that the different tools have. Yeah, you have to find out what works best for you. Finally, let's talk about documentation, and I think that this is a very overlooked part of product operations, product management, especially. You want to make sure that you are documenting your different flows. How do you do the whole product management process or product development process, even if you want to? It depends a lot on the scope of your work. But hey, how do you do discovery? How do you make decisions of, hey, for doing discovery, typically we are going to look into what's the problem. For this, we are going to do typically market research. This is the way that we usually do market research. This is sorry, I'm confusing now. That's the business. This is the way that we are validating the problem that we have. We talk usually with customers, blah, blah, blah. These are the customers that we can talk with. This is the way that we are doing business validation. What are the techniques, the frameworks that we use to do this? Then we are going to explain how do we do also discovery of the solution. We might also talk about how do we prioritize? How do we make sure that when we are doing prioritization, we are doing strategic alignment, we are aligning with our strategy. We are actually looking into not just that, hey, this is a great opportunity, we are going to make 100 million. It's like, no, but is this aligned or not with our strategy? And by the way, some people will say that, well, if you're going to make 100 million, then you should drop your strategy. It's like, well, either you work better on your strategy or you make sure that the 100 million is there, because I've been seeing this one of people talking that, hey, construction business, a $1 trillion opportunity. Yeah, the market size is huge doesn't mean that you have any idea of how you are gonna tackle that opportunity, or that you have a solution, that you have the team. So really explaining all, I'm diverting there a little bit. But basically, you want to make sure that you are documenting your processes. And I wouldn't try to write the Bible, I guess, about this. I wouldn't try to write endless documents. I would rather, or much rather, create slides or create something with Miro and describe the workflow. Because visual, so usually people don't have a very big attention span. So I would be surprised if 20% of the ones that started this video are still watching at this point. So, well, thank you very much if you're still here. If you're still here, definitely, thank you very much for being here. Now, if you, again, as I was saying, that people don't have very big attention span. So create an image that is easy to read, that is easy to follow. Yeah, you can have some text to support the image. That's probably great as well. But I would just try to visualize the workflows, create like those, SOPs, standard operating procedures, I believe it was the meaning, that basically just tells, hey, how we do prioritization, how we do how is it called? How do we do discovery? How do we do delivery? How do we do road mapping? How do we do X, whatever it is? How do we do strategic alignment? Documenting all these things is going to help you massively, because first of all, you can then go and tell people, first you document your process, but then you document what is your scope of work. Yes, this might not fall within your responsibility as a product manager, a product operations person, but you had to push your product managers to do this. That, hey, Now you have to explain to somebody that we are going to do this based on our strategic work. Our product strategy is this. And based on our strategy, this is how we are doing the prioritization of the things that are going to come in the roadmap. And we are expecting to do then together the plans of how we are going to release it, how we are going to launch it, how we are going to do the commercial and go to market activities, and make sure that everything is really aligned, that all those wheels and those cogwheels actually are aligning and working together. If you are doing this, if you are explaining people what is your decision-making process, and if you tell them this is how we make decisions, in the next period these are going to be our strategic priorities, and we are going to align towards them. So anything that you have towards those strategic goals, please bring it in, because this is your moment to really affect what we are building in this area. The other ones, most likely at this point, are going to have to hold on, unless it's something very critical like a bug or some re-architecture project that has to happen. So having this is going to help you align with all the teams. Why do I say this? Because this is what I used myself when talking with them, with sales, with marketing, with solution engineer support, to tell them, hey, this is our goal, this is what we're going to do, please help us build this. If you have something that aligns with this, tell us, because these are going to be the focus for the rest of the year, maybe even the 2 next years. These are going to be our strategic goals. If you have something, come and talk with us. We have reviews, we have meetings with them every maybe monthly or every other month or something like that. But then they come prepare and they understand where we want to go. And they understand that this is something that has been aligned also with leadership team and so on. I would also say that there's a benefit also to documentation. Is that if you go to a company and you see how they are doing, like if you are hiring for new people, or if you're bringing new people into the team, if they see this document, it's much easier for them to understand that, hey, this is how prioritization is made, how discovery is made, how we do a strategic alignment, or how we assess a strategic alignment. All these things is very important, especially for a newcomer. They will understand very well your ways of working. Is a much better way of getting onboarded than just reading through text. That most of the companies are going to have. In the best case, they have a ton of text. In the worst case, they don't have any documentation, and then you're on your own to try to figure out everything. But this gives them food for thought to understand that, hey, there's no perfect there's how the company works, but remember, there's no perfect process. There's no perfect operating system. It can always change. People that come new can come with new ideas, can come with new frameworks, can come with new solutions, or maybe making it more efficient. You don't want to describe the thing that is super stiff, super difficult to use, but you want to build something that it helps you not to forget to do discovery and not to put things directly in the roadmap without anybody paying any attention to that, if it's even part of our strategic goals. Because unfortunately, that's the other end of the spectrum, and where most of the companies end up is that they don't have a process, they don't have an operations, and then they end up with that kind of situations where things end up randomly in the roadmap that really don't align with anything. You want to make sure that you are able to really build something that actually is going to help you advance. And now I don't know what I was saying this. But yeah, I think that being able to, I was saying that it's not a unflexible way, but you don't want that people forget about things. What you don't want to end up is with never-ending review process of every single stage, and have we done properly discovery? Let's go and present this with the whole management team or whoever. Have we done now the first gate, quality gate, the planning gate, all these things? That's going to slow down things a lot. But you want to make sure that you are able to that teams go through that thinking process, through that operations that you want to achieve as a company. So you really want to enhance the chances of success of your product. So if you are interested in building a pro operations system, please go and check out the course I offer to tech teams It can be used also by not tech teams, but my experience is with tech companies, B2B companies especially. And this is what I built over the years. And this is taking you all the way from the beginning to the end of all these steps that I talk now during this maybe 1.5 hours, but really diving into each one of them, really telling you how to implement it in your company, really telling you and helping you how to really get that alignment across the different teams, that cross-functional work, and even offering you the different frameworks, the different workflows that you can be building in your company. So go take a look if you are serious about your pro operations, how you're going to establish it in your company. If you enjoyed this video, I'm going to please ask you to give it a like, because it has been quite a long one and hopefully you have enjoyed it. It has brought you value, and share it with other people, because I think that this is a very good Pro Operations 101. What is Pro Operations? How to build it in your company, how to build that governance on the pro, what are the processes that you have to establish. I'll see you in the next one.